Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm really curious to get your take on it.
Okay.
Does more time in school, actually change your brain structure?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all that learning, does it actually, rewire things up there?
Mhm.
So there's this recent study that looked into that, and it had some findings that I definitely was not expecting. And
Okay.
I'm thinking you might be surprised too.
Well, it is a fascinating question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We often hear about all the benefits of education.
Right.
Things like better health or stronger cognitive skills or even higher earning potential.
Exactly, yeah. And this study, it went a step further and asked, do those benefits actually show up in the physical structure of the brain?
Yeah.
Can we actually see the impact of education on brain scans?
Right.
To get to the bottom of this, the researchers had this incredible opportunity.
Okay.
Looks like a giant natural experiment just fell right into their laps.
Okay.
Back in 1972, the UK raised the mandatory schooling age from 15 to 16.
Right.
So this created two groups of people who were essentially the same in almost every way, except for that one extra year of school.
Yeah. And this gave them a massive amount of data to work with.
Right.
I mean, they followed over 30,000 individuals.
Wow.
And here's the kicker. They had MRI scans taken 46 years later.
Oh, wow.
We're talking the world's largest collection of brain imaging data.
That's incredible.
It's the kind of study that neuroscientists dream of.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this huge study, this perfect natural experiment.
Yeah.
Everyone's on the edge of their seats waiting to see what they found.
Exactly.
Did that extra year of school leave a visible mark on the brain?
Well, here's where things take an unexpected turn.
Okay.
They found,
Nothing?
really,
Yeah.
no significant differences.
But no significant differences in brain structure between the two groups. I have to admit, I was totally expecting some kind of mind-blowing revelation about how education sculpts our brains.
Yeah.
You go to school longer, your brain gets physically bigger or something.
I know, I was surprised too.
Yeah.
Especially since we know that aging shows up quite clearly on MRI scans.
Right.
I was anticipating that maybe education might have some kind of protective effect against those changes. But that's not what they found.
So how do we make sense of this? I mean, does this mean all that time hitting the books was all for nothing?
Well,
If education isn't leaving a visible trace on our brain structure, what's going on?
not necessarily. There are a few possible explanations that we need to consider.
Okay.
One possibility is that maybe the changes are just temporary.
Okay.
Think of it like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
If you work out for a while, you build muscle.
Right.
But if you stop exercising, eventually those muscles start to atrophy. It's possible that the brain did change during that extra year of school. But those changes just weren't permanent.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if the changes are happening, but we just can't see them? Could it be that our current MRI technology just isn't powerful enough
Right.
to pick up on the more subtle ways that education might be affecting the brain?
Yeah, that's another possibility.
Okay.
The brain is incredibly complex.
Yeah.
With billions of neurons and trillions of connections.
Right.
It's quite possible that the changes we're looking for are happening at a microscopic level, too small to be detected by current MRI technology.
Okay, so maybe something is happening.
Right.
But we just haven't developed the tools to see it yet.
Yeah.
This brings us to something you always emphasize.
Yeah.
The crucial difference between correlation and causation.
Absolutely.
Just because we see a link between two things doesn't mean one directly causes the other.
Exactly.
In this case, we see correlations between education and positive outcomes like better cognitive skills and health. But this study is showing us that those correlations don't necessarily translate into visible structural changes in the brain.
That's right.
This is why I find this research so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a great reminder that things are often much more complicated than they seem on the surface.
For sure.
We need to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to something as complex as the human brain.
It is a great example of how science can challenge our assumptions.
Right.
Just when we think we have things figured out.
Yeah.
A study like this comes along and shakes things up.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
Right.
It opens up new avenues for research and forces us to think in new ways.
Right. It's like the study is throwing down the gauntlet,
Yeah.
challenging us to dig deeper and really explore the more nuanced ways that education might be affecting us.
Exactly.
We need to move beyond just looking at the physical structure of the brain.
Right.
And start considering other factors, like the connections between neurons, the efficiency of neural networks,
Yes.
and the way the brain utilizes its resources.
Absolutely.
So if these benefits aren't showing up in those broad structural changes, where are they?
That's the question.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it raises some interesting questions.
Okay.
Maybe the benefits of education work through more indirect pathways. Perhaps it's about the skills we develop.
Okay.
The networks we build, the opportunities that open up as a result of our education.
Yeah.
It could be about how education shapes our thinking patterns,
Okay.
problem-solving abilities, or resilience in the face of challenges.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about like the hardware of the brain itself changing,
Right.
but how education influences like how we use our brains.
Yeah.
Like we're getting a software upgrade instead of new hardware.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's about the connections we make, the experiences we seek out.
Right.
The way we approach problems.
Right.
And these software upgrades can have a huge impact on our lives.
Yeah.
Even if they're not leaving a big obvious mark on a brain scan.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Critical thinking, communication skills, the ability to adapt to new situations. These are all things that we hone through education.
Right.
And they can shape our lives in countless ways,
Yeah.
way beyond just the size of a particular brain region.
Exactly. And the study authors themselves, they actually found correlations between more education and better cognitive abilities,
Right.
health and employment.
Wow.
It's just that those benefits didn't manifest in visible structural changes in the way their MRI scans were measuring.
So what you're saying is this research isn't diminishing the value of education.
No, not at all.
It's just prompting us to rethink where those benefits are actually showing up
Exactly.
and how they're working.
Precisely.
It challenges us to expand our understanding of how education shapes us. Maybe those benefits are less about our brains looking different. Right.
And more about how we use them.
Right.
This reminds me of that quote, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire."
Oh, I love that one.
It's about igniting our potential, not just cramming facts into our heads.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
And the study really supports that idea.
He does.
We may not see huge structural changes in the brain,
Right.
but education is clearly doing something powerful.
Yes.
It's shaping our thinking,
Yeah.
our abilities, our potential.
Absolutely.
It also highlights the limitations of our current technology. We're using these incredible tools like MRI to peer into the brain,
Right.
but we're still just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Who knows what we'll discover as our technology advances even further.
You bring up a great point.
Yeah.
MRI is fantastic for showing us the structure of the brain, but it's not as good at capturing the dynamic processes happening at the cellular level.
Right.
There could be a whole world of changes going on that we're just not equipped to see yet.
So maybe in the future, we'll have even more sophisticated tools that can show us how education is influencing things like synaptic connections,
Yeah.
neural pathways, and brain activity patterns.
Absolutely. The field of neuroscience is constantly evolving.
Right.
And new technologies are being developed all the time.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what the future holds.
This has been such an interesting conversation.
It has.
It started with this seemingly simple question.
Yeah.
Does more schooling change your brain structure?
Right.
And it's led us to a much deeper discussion about the true value and impact of education.
It's a great example of how a single study can spark a whole chain of questions and insights.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance of staying curious and open to new ways of thinking.
We've explored some possible explanations for why this study didn't find structural changes in the brain.
Right.
But this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm really curious about now,
Yeah.
if those benefits aren't showing up in obvious structural changes, where are they manifesting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
How is education shaping our lives, our careers, our relationships
Right.
in ways we might not even be aware of?
I like that.
Yeah, it's like we've been so focused on like measuring those tangible physical changes
Right.
in the brain
Yeah.
that we've overlooked like the power of the intangible, the mental processes, skills, and mindsets that education helps us develop.
Yeah, it's about how education empowers us
Right.
to, like, think differently, to approach challenges with creativity and resilience, to connect with others and build meaningful relationships.
Right.
And these are all things that can have a profound impact on our lives,
Yeah.
even if they're not visible on a brain scan.
It makes you wonder if maybe we need to rethink how we measure the success of education.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not just about test scores and grades, but about these like broader, more holistic outcomes.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Maybe true educational success is about cultivating critical thinking, problem-solving abilities, adaptability, emotional intelligence. You know, those essential skills that allow individuals to thrive in a complex and ever-changing world.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opener for me.
It has been fascinating.
We started with this like seemingly straightforward question.
Yeah.
Does more schooling change your brain structure?
Right.
And it's led us to a much richer and more nuanced understanding of the like multifaceted impact of education.
It's a perfect example of how scientific research can challenge our assumptions and push us to think more deeply about the world around us.
Yeah.
And it highlights the fact that we still have so much to learn about the brain and how it's shaped by our experiences.
As always, it's the questions that lead us to the most interesting places.
Definitely.
And this study has certainly left us with a lot to ponder. If the benefits of education aren't necessarily showing up in those visible structural changes, where are they manifesting? How are they shaping our lives in ways we might not even realize?
Those are fantastic questions to keep exploring, both individually and as a society.
Yeah.
You know, it invites us to think more deeply about the true purpose of education, beyond just acquiring knowledge and getting good grades. It's about cultivating the skills, mindsets, and values that allow us to live fulfilling and meaningful lives.
This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation.
I agree.
A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this thought-provoking journey.
My pleasure.
And to all of our deep divers out there, keep those brains buzzing.
Yes.
Keep asking those questions and keep exploring the world with curiosity and open minds.
Couldn't agree more.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.